Board of Education regular meeting. It's Monday, February 12th, 7 p.m. The Board of Education makes available at least one current copy of the Opens Meetings Act, which is posted on the west wall of the meeting room and accessible to members of the public. Will you please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start with the consent agenda. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the consent agenda as presented, including approval of minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting on January 15th, 2024, approval of the proposed accounts for payment, approval of budgetary receipts and expenditures for January 2024, approval of option students, approval of the resignations of Dick Stewart, Middle School Math, Jennifer Lunt, Speech Language Pathologist, Aaron Hamilton, High School Math, Megan Demas, 3rd grade at Paddock Lane, and approval of contracts for 2024-2025, J.C. Kohler Elementary and Cheyenne Pinion Elementary Art.
Okay, thank you, Doris. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Jason, do you have a treasurer's report for us?
I do. So expenses for the month of January, bills were $922,236, payroll $1,785,823, which brought the total to $2,708,059. Revenue for the month of January was $3,079,928. Currently, at this point, we've expended 38.67% of our budget at the 5-month mark, and next month, or at the end of February, we'll mark the halfway point of our budget cycle. So in terms of budget authority, we're doing well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any items that the board would like to pull for further discussion? Okay, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes. Next up, Outstanding Recognition, Employee of the Month, Dr. Nielsen.
Hey, good evening. I am taking care of the Employee of the Month. The administrator in charge of this employee is at parent-teacher conferences, so she is manning that. And I will tell you, I think our employee that is here today thinks that she's here for a presentation that her sister is giving. However, it really is going to be her presentation. So will Kelly come on down and join me up here?
I haven't got my book out.
I know. So we got her down here to say that her sister had a presentation and she had to come watch it. Exciting Monday evening. So Miss Kelly Carpenter is the February Employee of the Month. Kelly has been an employee at BPS for many, many years. She's always built great relationships with not only all of the children she works with, but also with her fellow employees. She is an employee who is truly a jack of all trades. She is always willing to help in any capacity necessary. She never hesitates to go the extra mile when it comes to helping out in the building, whether it is subbing in a classroom if needed, or taking over as secretary for the day, and etc. Kelly is always here extra early to help with breakfast and is one of the last to leave as she waits until all students are picked up by the buses. Over the last several summers, Kelly has found her way into a summer school class teaching students to love reading as they work through the wonderful world of Pete the Cat. Mrs. Carpenter can be found working with students throughout the day in a positive manner. She is always looking for the positives to help out, whether it be helping to get breakfast started, to helping a student work, or finding something that needs to be done. Ms. Carpenter is a warm, friendly face that makes Stoddard Elementary a great place to be. And I will tell you, when I've been there, she's always willing to take on new roles. She's always willing to help a kid who's at the office, who's in the hallway. You just do amazing things. Yes, thank you. Our school is very lucky to have such a caring, selfless, committed employee. We would like to congratulate Ms. Kelly Carpenter, February's Employee of the Month. Perfect. Hey, you're welcome. Thank you. Congratulations.
All right, congratulations, Kelly. Next up, Business Friend of the Month, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so we have a little bit different business friend of the month this month. And he's a little bit shy, so he couldn't be with us tonight. But we do want to go ahead and recognize him. And Ron, I want to say thanks for coming tonight to support him and also help in writing this little narrative up here. This man is a jack of all trades and a master of a lot. He claims he knows a little bit about a lot, although we would have to say that he knows a lot about a lot. I mean, come on, he's working on equipment way older than he is. He's been our go-to guy for many years and has done everything from HVAC, boilers, sensors, and alarms for our refrigeration, and helped us with all the software program that controls our boilers, HVAC, and lighting called Metasys. He has been through tunnels, busted out concrete blocks to get to piping, and been on tall roofs in the middle of winter. He has really made a difference here at Beatrice Public Schools. This guy understands what it means to stretch a dollar and understands our direction with the new elementary school. He's been a conscientious steward of the taxpayer dollar because he is one, living in our own district and supporting our own students and a staff as a taxpayer, a contractor, but most importantly, one of us doing the best he can for the students attending BPS. Now that is definitely someone working for us like a member of our district, although he's not. He is not only the best working man for Johnson Controls and a friend to many with the district, he is a part of our family here at BPS. And if you haven't figured out who we're talking about tonight, it's Mr. Kurt Shin. He will be retiring from Johnson Controls in the next few months, and this was our last opportunity to recognize him for all the help that he's been. He will be greatly missed, but we hope that he will grace us with his presence every once in a while as we think of him as our family and our friend and part of our staff here at BPS. We wish him well in his retirement, and we thank him for all the help he's been over these years, and he is truly deserving of this award tonight as our Business Friend of the Month. So thank you, Mr. Kurt Shin.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Next up, board member recognition, Mr. Alexander.
So last month was board member recognition month, and it fell after there was a week in January, it fell after the January meeting. So we didn't really get a chance to recognize our board members in the January meeting. We wanted to take just a moment tonight to appreciate the service that they provide for our school and say a little bit about each one of them. And we know that the reality is the reason that they're really on the Board of Education is for the tremendous pay that they get, but we wanted to make sure that they know how much we appreciate them. BJ Vitrosky does an excellent job of communicating the voice of the patrons who elected him. His appreciation of student involvement in extracurriculars helps the district ensure that students are actively involved and have opportunities to build their leadership potential. BJ realizes the value of active engagement in the school as a way to help students excel in their academics. Thank you, BJ. Doris's endless efforts on behalf of the Education Foundation have enriched the educational opportunities for so many students that attend BPS. The BLAST after-school program for elementary children and the Enhanced Scholarship program for the high school students has enabled so many to enjoy opportunities that might not be available otherwise. Her service as a board member has given her the opportunity to see firsthand the growth and development of students from the very youngest to those who are ready to venture out into the world of advanced educational opportunities and onto their workforce. Doris has experience as a former teacher, journalism teacher, which gives her valuable insight to educational issues, amongst many others, and she advocates for teachers still working. Doris, thank you for all you do. Lisa Pieper. Lisa's passion for ensuring we have a strong vision through the strategic plan is greatly appreciated. Both the former strategic plan and our current plan. Lisa was part of both. She continues to push the district to keep focused on the vision developed by the community and our stakeholders. She works to gain an understanding of what decisions are in front of the administration at the district and building level and supports them. Lisa understands that we strive to make decisions that are made that are the most beneficial to our students and staff. Thank you, Lisa. Eric Book. Eric is a solid board member with a proven track record in keeping kids first in the decisions he makes. Eric continues to grow as a board member by attending workshops through NASB and educating himself as much as he possibly can. His integral work in gaining perspective from people in the construction industry was critical in explaining why we needed a new building. He continues to focus on leadership and continues to take that role seriously in his position on the board. And he seeks great opportunities for every child in Beatrice. Thank you, Eric. Janet Byers. Janet's attention to detail is to be applauded. With every new endeavor, whether by the Board of Education or the administrative team, Janet asks those questions that others might not think of. She's always asking me questions, which is good. She's keeping an eye on the financial and is extremely important. Keeping an eye on the financial end is extremely important to Janet, but keeping an eye out for the children and students we serve is far more important to her. Janet will always listen to a concern, and she will work tirelessly to find the solution or solve the problem that we have at hand. Janet is always willing to assist with the schools and has helped with numerous grants to benefit our schools as well. Thank you, Janet. Charles Riso. Charles's witty sense of humor and quips keep us all on our toes. You have to listen when you're talking to Charles. However, most importantly, his heart will always be in the right place when it comes to doing what's best for kids and teachers. As a retired teacher himself, Charles understands what education is and has the best interests of kids at heart. Charles has recently dove into the legislative process head first and testified last week in support of LB 1284, which is a bill to fund the computer science technology requirements that came through last year. So we appreciate your willingness to be part of that process and represent BPS and STANCE in doing so. Thank you for representing our kids, Charles. Finally, Eric Trusty. Eric's use of questions to ensure that we are moving forward with students as the primary focus is valuable for the Beatrice Public Schools District. He continues to ask questions and help us search for ways to think creatively, allowing the district to maintain strong practices and have thoughtful and heartful conversations. Eric is able to disagree with others' opinions appropriately and makes decisions based on his own best judgment and what he believes is in the best interest of kids. Thank you, Eric. So, with that, although Board Appreciation Week was last month, we wanted to take a moment and just say thank you for what you do. Your checks are effectively in the mail. So, thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause.
Did we get those checks last year?
Yeah, you did. Same amount.
Still waiting.
All right, thank you, Jason. Next up, information portion of the meeting. We'll start with a student update. Maddie.
At the preschool, students were excited to finally get into the school with all of the extra snow. Teachers enjoyed home visits in January and now are excited to get back into the swing of things. To work on being good citizens and kindness, they are collecting cans of food to donate to local agencies. Staff at the preschool had an amazing in-service to talk about play and how it promotes growth in our students. At Lincoln and Stoddard, kids are getting back into the swing of things for second semester. The halls have sounds of the music programs that are coming up. At Paddock, the last of February and the first part of March are usually busy. Parent-teacher conferences are taking place on Monday and Tuesday, February 12th and 13th. Staff members look forward to visiting with parents during conference time. There will be no school on Friday, February 16th and Monday the 19th. Nebraska Frameworks team will be visiting Beatrice Public Schools on Monday, February 26th and Tuesday, February 27th. Team members will be visiting classrooms and having lunch with some of our students. Kindergarten, first, second, and third grades are getting ready for their spring programs scheduled to begin at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, March 5th in the Hebalone. The fifth grade will have a presentation on the American Revolution and Colonial America by Mark Byers on Monday, March 11th. Everyone is looking forward to this presentation. The Beatrice Middle School girls basketball has recently completed their season. Wrestling is still competing for a few more weeks. Beginning next year, girls wrestling will be during second quarter and boys wrestling will be during third quarter. 8th graders are currently working on their high school registration sheets, and there's a parent meeting tonight at BHS. On February 22nd, Beatrice Middle School will hold a career fair where 16 local business representatives across various clusters will come to speak to the 8th graders to get their brains turning about what they may want to be when they're older. At the high school, leadership class put on the annual paper airplane contest. They raised $1,400 to donate to Make-A-Wish. All winter sports are finishing regular season competitions, and cheer, dance, and boys and girls wrestling state competitions are this weekend. 3 high school Beatrice FFA members competed at the District 1 competition in Weeping Waters, and they all qualified for state in April. Parent-teacher conferences are Monday the 12th in teachers' classrooms and Thursday the 15th in the Commons.
Thank you, Maddie. Next up, board reports. We'll start with the stance report.
So our last stance meeting was a Zoom meeting on Friday, February 2nd, and basically it was an opportunity for us to review the 18 legislative bills up for hearing the week of February 5th through the 12th. Just some key bills to mention: LB 1339, which was probably the longest hearing of the day. Senator Brewer was looking to change the provisions relating to possession of firearms in schools and authorize schools and school boards the opportunity to decide if teachers would be allowed, or people who are authorized to carry firearms would be allowed to carry those in schools. So that hearing went for a good two hours and took up, there was quite a bit of conversation, so we'll see if that bill advances to the floor. 1284, as I mentioned before, Senator Walz's bill that Charles testified on is a follow-up bill to the computer science requirements from 2023 that provides for a statewide computer science ed expansion program and funding. Key word there, and funding. And Charles testified nicely on behalf of Beatrice Public Schools and stance. So this week there are 26 bills that are being discussed that somehow will impact education one way or the other if they make it onto the floor and are voted in. So 964 by Dungan is a loan forgiveness for SPED teachers. 1121 by Dungan is a teacher applies for retention grant in the 4th year of teaching for $2,500 to stay teaching. And then 1053, Walz's bill, is retention money for extended career retention for teachers. So there are 3 key bills that are trying to help with facing the teacher shortage. They were all heard today in committee, and we'll see where they end up. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Committee of the Whole. Doris.
The Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting was held on Thursday, January 25th. Much of it was informational, including a construction update on the new elementary. And Mr. Alexander told us that the building is completely drywalled and painting is continuing. He also talked about furniture and that the district has met with school specialty and reviewed their recommendations. He also shared that the Mason Group has been communicating in regard to having a cornerstone installed in the new building. The ceremony is tentatively scheduled for Saturday, June 27th. He also gave some updates on changes that are being made to hopefully increase our ability to attract teachers, including accepting up to 50 years of experience, and also to offering some tuition reimbursement. We also had a look at the 2024-2025 calendar, which we'll talk about later, so that ends my report.
Okay, thank you, Doris. Next up is the opportunity for public forum comments. Seeing that we didn't receive a card to speak tonight, we will move forward to the discussion portion. First is the first reading of policy 4110.1, salary guides and regulation. 4110.1, advancement on salary schedule. Mr. Alexander.
So through the negotiations process, it was recommended and agreed by both sides in the negotiations the Beatrice Education Association and the Board of Education negotiators, that in order to remain competitive with other schools, we changed that policy to allow all years of experience to be brought in upon hiring. And so, as you can see up on the board there, that's what we've changed. It's just that one little highlighted section. We've changed that one little bit to say we will bring in all years of experience. So that will hopefully help us remain competitive with other schools that are already doing that, and bring bring in teachers that we need to continue to teach kids. Janet, anything you'd add to that?
No, I was just very pleased that BEA brought it to our attention and that we could actually look at it and take action on it. That's a good conversation.
That's the regulation, and it says 50 years in there. Do we want to stick with 50 years, or do we want to stick with all years of experience? Is that all right?
I thought we had discussed taking the 50 out.
Just saying all
All years of
all
experience.
years.
Right? We'll make that change. We have another reading, so we can make that change and bring it to you next month. Okay?
Any other comments?
I think that's probably.
I'm asking if we should add successful experience.
We can put the word successful
I
there.
don't know. If that, just in case.
Which I think I asked the question, and I believe it's stated in there. For example, if you are a para and you go back and you get your teaching certificate, do your years of para experience count? And we said no. And I think, didn't we,
We had something
it
that
was in there that specified, for example,
certified experience,
Certificated experience, yeah.
maybe would be.
I think it's difficult, when I think about it, successful is, I might consider them successful and you might consider them not, so I think that's a difficult
Right.
word to use.
But I think
I think
certificated
Yeah.
should be in there,
Mhm.
yep.
I think I should cover it.
Yep.
That. Any other comments, questions, changes?
I guess my only other question would be is if somebody switches, like they were it doesn't typically happen, but if they change completely, if they were a music teacher and now they're gonna be an English teacher, are we gonna give them credit? I mean, they're still working with kids and they gain that experience, so maybe it's okay, but, or if you go from a
Well, what if
completely
you go from
different.
an administrator to a teacher?
That would still fall into the category of certificated,
Okay.
Mhm.
so it would still
Yeah.
work. Certificates are required for all of those positions. So once you have your teaching certificate, then you'd be categorized in that format.
I do think it's positive in the hiring process to make that change. I think it will help our administrators a lot.
Okay, any other comments? All right, next up, first reading of policy 4110.3, tuition reimbursement. Mr. Alexander.
So this is another area that schools are looking at in order to help maneuver the teacher shortage, and a lot of times what will happen is a school will look to a teacher and say, will you go back and get an endorsement? You already have a teaching certificate, but would you get another endorsement in a certain area where we have a shortage? In such cases, schools are paying for the tuition with the understanding that the teacher must meet certain criteria and commitment to the school. So we've been approached, and I think it's a good idea to take a look at this policy and look at adopting it. Basically, what we presented you with at the committee of the whole meeting was a draft policy proposing the case that if we go to a teacher as a school district and say, will you get an English endorsement because we're short English teachers, and said teacher agrees to do that, then we would help pay for that tuition. We would basically pay for the tuition costs, not the fees, not all the other things that come along with it, but pay the tuition for that teacher to go back and get that endorsement. I think that's fair, and it is something that's becoming a more common practice than it has been in the past. So essentially what we've done is created a policy that reflects that. the caveat to the policy is in the fact that the teacher has to agree to serving for a 2-year time period at Beatrice Public Schools once that's been done, or as upon the completion of their endorsement. So if they don't, we have some criteria set, and we did reword this a little bit. I just want to make you aware of it, that 100% of the cost of tuition will be refunded if the teacher leaves the district having serving less than 5 months of consecutive service as a certificated teacher. So for whatever reason that may be, if we've reimbursed the teacher and they've only served for 5 months or less, they're responsible for reimbursing us back the cost of that endorsement. 80% of the cost of tuition shall be refunded if the teacher leaves the district having served for at least 6 months of consecutive service, but less than 12 consecutive months. So we're trying to say that if you serve a certain amount, 6 months of consecutive service, but less than 12 months, then you have to refund up to 80% of the cost of that tuition. And then 60% of the cost of tuition should be refunded if a teacher leaves the district having served for at least 13 months of service, but less than the 2 years that are required. So essentially, if a teacher ever leaves prior to the conclusion of that 2 years service agreement, they're responsible for repaying the district back part of that tuition on the basis of those things there. At the start of the teacher's 25th consecutive month of employment, or 2 years, after 2 years, their tuition is paid for. So we thought that was a little bit more clear in terms of the requirements of the teacher getting that tuition paid for. Questions?
Do they typically prorate the reimbursement? Because I guess the occupations that I'm familiar with, they make you make a commitment, period. And if you leave prior to that, you reimburse 100%. They do not prorate based on partial fulfillment of that obligation. So I was just curious why the partial reimbursement, if that was something that you found that's more common, or because that's not something I guess I've seen in the past.
It is in some of our array schools negotiated agreements that way. Maybe the percentages are a little bit different, or the years of commitment might be different, but we can write it however we want to. And this is the time. If we want to just stick with 100% reimbursement for a 2-year commitment, we can sure do that.
You know, we did not talk about that a lot in negotiations. It was something that did come up, but we did not feel that we wanted to put it in the contract, that it was better in a policy where we could make adjustments as time went on.
I agree on that aspect.
Do teachers always go back and get an endorsement, or are they sometimes asked, or do we need them to get additional training within their endorsed area that would be, I don't know, I don't know, can someone help me out with that? Do you know what I'm asking?
I guess I would consider those two different things.
Yeah.
I think it depends, because right now we are seeking one of our career tech ed teachers to go back and get that work-based learning certification, so we can have a work-based learning coordinator. The nice thing about that certification is Perkins will help pay for that. So we've got an avenue to help pay that teacher to go get what they need to get, so that they can provide that opportunity for our students.
But does that tie our hands a little bit? I mean, would it be better to have it be left up to the administration if there's an area that we see a need in that isn't necessarily in endorsement?
I think this does leave it up to, I thought, allow for the teachers who receive a request by the superintendent or assistant superintendent.
Okay.
Well, and it would be to obtain a specific bachelor's degree or new area of
Okay.
endorsement.
So it would be,
It would be kind of more open.
You know, and something that we could consider is if they, rather than having 4 different times, maybe 2, you know, that they would reimburse 100% if they leave prior to the 12 months and 50% if they leave prior to the 24 months. We could consider something like that. Might almost be easier.
Sure.
Especially if we're paying for them to complete a bachelor's degree. I mean, you know, an endorsement's probably less expensive than says to obtain a specific bachelor's degree.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, if
true.
you've got a parent that's going back to get their bachelor's degree, we could be talking about several years of education, so I'm a little, I guess that's part of where my question's coming from.
Does this pertain just to certificated staff, or does it pertain to all staff?
This just pertains to certificated staff.
I would. Which they would already have a bachelor's degree, right?
So they would already have a bachelor's degree, and that's why they can teach in that classroom without.
That's not what
being-
it says there. It says to obtain a specific bachelor's degree.
Yes, so they might need a new one. So for example, we have a social studies teacher. Well, here's the thing, I don't need a social studies teacher, but I have a social studies teacher that's willing to teach English. So what I would do is I would take that social studies teacher, and we need an English teacher, we have to have one. We're short, so I would look at that social studies teacher and say, okay, we need you to get an English degree. Pay for them to go back and get that English degree. Now, here's the thing, when a social studies position opens up, if they're going to get that English degree, they're gonna stick in that English classroom, because I've got 5 other applicants for the social studies position. I still need this person to be an English teacher.
And I guess it does say in number 2 that it's a certified teacher.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Does this only apply to teaching staff and administrators? Would this apply to administrators? If we needed somebody at elementary to get a high school certificate or endorsement or whatever?
Currently, it could, because it's certificated, but I think it's geared more towards
The teacher.
applying to teachers.
And to fill positions that we have to have filled?
Yeah,
Right.
the hard to fill positions.
Yeah.
That we have teachers that are very willing to come into our district and be a part of our district. It's just maybe in a position where they are not endorsed, and now they're having to go back and get that
How long
endorsement.
does
of
it
that degree.
generally take to get that endorsement?
Usually they get the provisional for 3 years, so the state gives them 3 years to finish it.
Okay.
Depends on how many hours they've already taken.
Yeah.
Right.
Because, you know,
Right.
Or that can go over to that other degree.
Yeah,
Because then
I
they have
guess
already taken
I was
some.
just assuming that that they would have to get quite a few hours to get that endorsement, and I wondered how long that would take.
I would say it's probably anywhere in between 18 to 36.
Okay.
That's usually, an endorsement would be 18, 36 would be the bachelor's, but if they have hours that they can transfer over, you might have something already in your coursework that you've taken.
And are we reimbursing that that's at the completion of receiving the additional endorsement, not as they go, correct?
That I'm not. that would
And
be Jason question.
It's been a while since we've, you know, I guess since I first saw this, so there is something in there, if I remember correctly, that they must receive, obviously, a passing grade.
A B. It's a B or higher.
B or higher.
Okay.
And it says upon completing the course with the grade of B or high above, the employee must submit a receipt for the tuition payment and final grade card evidencing successful completion of the course within 90 days from the date of the last class.
The last class,
I think that
meaning the
means-
last class,
Which, yes, is it at the
Upon-
very end?
that's
or
what
is it-
that's what I'm asking for clarification of, is it?
Okay, I don't know, well,
In terms of budget, it would be easier to pay them as they
As
go,
they go.
as compared to having to pay one big lump sum when they're done. If they are turning those credits in, but I see where that,
Well, because you just said they have to guarantee X number of years, and now you're telling me that you're gonna pay it as they go, so that's what I'm having a little conflict with,
And I guess I'm thinking, what if they decide not to finish it?
right?
then
Do
Right.
you,
you've
you've already reimbursed them?
Mhm.
So we could put a stipulation in there that all fees will be paid upon completion of the endorsement requested.
Oh, credit hours, are we paying fees too?
No, just
Yeah.
credit hours. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing you could do too is, which we do in these cases, is there's a contract. So if you are paying as they go, which I can agree with you, it might be easier on the budget, But then there's a contract that does stipulate, you know, if they decide to leave at that point, you know, and they haven't completed that, then they owe 100%, you know, back. So basically, they're signing, essentially, it's a promissory note saying, I promise that I will
And you
complete
deduct it
this
from their-
coursework
and you deduct
and-
that from their last paycheck or
Yes.
I was
whatever,
gonna
yeah.
say, that would be a pretty big.
Chunk of change, yeah.
Yeah, and it would, that final check cover it.
but you're getting something.
Yeah.
Is there any provision for hardship cases where, for repaying that reimbursement? Because if they'd be injured in some way, what happens?
You know, I think some of that you're just gonna have to work with, that scenario may or may not come up. So I think if that came up, you just have to, administration would just have to work with it.
There are circumstances where, for those very reasons that you mentioned, Charles, there have been times in the past where a teacher has come in and said, I just can't keep going, for whether it's, you know, a cancer tumor or things like that happen, and they just can't continue to work. And so then they go on Family Medical Leave Act. But you're right, when you're faced with that situation and a person has to leave and can't complete that, how much do we, you know, how humane can we be, I guess, is the question. And that's probably where we have to look at those on a case-by-case basis, but as much as possible, if it's a choice they're making just to leave, they should have to reimburse.
Mr. Suter was wanting to say something, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think one other thing that I would want the board to consider, there have been times where I have had teachers come to me that have been teaching in a subject area, and we have an opening in another area, and they have said, I'm interested in moving into that area. So the way I'm kind of picking up this is, the clarification would be, is a teacher asking to move into that area, or are administrators asking a teacher to get endorsed in that area? I think there's two different things there. If a teacher's saying, I don't want to teach this subject area anymore, I would like to go back to school and get this endorsement, so I want to teach this subject area, that is different, I think, than if I ask a teacher, would you please go back and get endorsed in this area because we don't have any applicants for this area. So I think as you keep going in your discussion, something I would hope that you would consider is, in that contract, is it clear that they were asked by administration to pursue this, or is this just something that they're wanting to do? I think that would make a difference on the reimbursement.
And I think that was the whole premise of this too, was exactly what you just said, Mr. Suter, is administration asked the teacher to become endorsed in English or math or whatever that may be,
I
versus,
think that would need to be documented so it's not later on any confusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was something that we discussed in negotiations. This is if an administrator or the superintendent requests that they get an endorsement is one thing. If you do a type of tuition reimbursement policy for somebody who just wants to continue education, that would be a different policy.
Will we allow people to take graduate hours and reimburse, and then move on the salary schedule?
Most of the time, if you're having to get an endorsement or another degree, you do not want to take the graduate hours. So, for example, if I'm.
But will we? I mean, I have a problem with reimbursing somebody to then move on the salary schedule.
but they're gonna probably move anyway because they're
No, they won't.
getting additional
No.
credit hours.
No, they
If
don't.
they're getting another bachelor's,
Uh-huh.
they do not move. And
Uh-huh.
that is why this was brought to our attention, is we have a teacher going through this right now. And this teacher is not moving on the pay scale. And the other thing is,
It's a lateral move.
at this point in time, administration is not looking at this teacher to move into a position that's open, that is in his degree area. We're saying, no, we have to have you here, so we still need you here. And so those are some of the conversations that we're having, is because of the lack of applicants that we have across the nation, it is becoming very difficult, and this teacher's doing an awesome job in the area that we've placed him in, but
I think the separation is the difference between the endorsement, which would be an undergraduate requirement, and graduate, as you mentioned. That would move them on the salary schedule.
Right, but I also know that there are graduate level classes that people probably could take. I think that's gonna have to be made clear. I mean, it's, in education, there are classes available that I think people could take, and that would be, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't.
Usually on the transcript, there's a pretty clear delineation between undergraduate hours and graduate hours, so I think we'd be able to sort that out.
And usually if I'm going back to get my graduate degree, I have a base or a foundation
Right.
in that subject area. In this circumstance, this person did not, and I think in most circumstances that we'd be looking at, the person would not have a base in that other subject area, so we would be asking them to build their foundation in that subject area.
Doris, it specifies undergrad. It says tuition associated with attaining undergrad courses required to obtain. So we should. I have it's at the very, very top, Jackie, like the second sentence.
Oh, right there.
And is that clear that it has to be, I can't read something that is like this thing, that it has to be requested by administration? Is that very clear?
Yeah, it says be asked by the superintendent or assistant superintendent to
Okay.
obtain.
And what typically is gonna happen in that scenario is Mr. Suter, as he mentioned, is gonna come to us and say, we could look at this person and ask them if they wanna get this endorsement. And then we would say either, yeah, that's what we need to do, or no, we can go a different route. And I do agree with those comments, and we talked about that at the committee of the whole meeting. There's a significant difference between someone wanting to maybe change up their career and go a different path and move from teaching music to teaching PE, or teaching music to teaching, something else, as compared to us needing and asking a person who has the skills to maybe teach math and the ability, because they have a business degree, but we're asking them to teach business or to teach math. That's a different scenario, and I think that is clearly stated in this, which I like. But I think we can make some of these changes that you've recommended, keep the discussion moving forward, and go from there.
Got any other questions, discussion? Okay, we'll move on to the action portion. First up, approval of the 24-25 school calendar. Mr. Alexander and Dr. Nielsen, do I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the 2024-25 school calendar as presented.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. All right, Jackie.
Okay, so the school calendar is in front of you. It is to be voted on tonight, and there are a number of changes. So we just want to reiterate some of the changes that are on the calendar. Number one, we've spent time sharing the calendar, receiving input from the administrative team, from teachers, from first student, transportation members, from board members. And we've looked at all of those perspectives and hopefully tried to create a calendar that is all about kids and is doing what's best for our kids, but also allowing for that professional learning time still for our teachers and that collaboration time. So as we look at it, as we look at the beginning of the year, one of the things to note are the start times. So the start times are a little bit different. Notice that on the 13th, it's a half day just for 6th grade and 9th grade. Then on the 14th, we will see our 7th and 8th graders and our 10th through 12th graders return. So on the 14th, it would be school for our 6th through 12th. And then on the 15th, we would bring back our K-5. What that does is that allows for collaboration, for understanding, for help of teaching our staff, all staff, how to use the new facility, how to understand, how do we work with traffic, how do we work with drills, how do we manage classroom time. What are the different pieces that we have? What are the different tools we have in the building, and how do we make sure that we know what's going on? It also allows for plenty of nights and plenty of time to bring in parents and bring in students so that we can get them acclimated to the building and acclimated to everything that's going on the east side of town before school starts. As you move through, the other thing you see is August 28th, and then you see 4 other days along with August 28th that are early release teacher collaboration days. So Wednesdays, currently we dismiss on Wednesdays for teacher collaboration. As we are looking at what we did with this calendar is we are scheduling 5 at the right time early release days. And we have added a few more full day professional development days for our teachers to collaborate. So this one, yes, I know again, it's August 28th, so it's kind of in the very end of August, and they are not the same, and it is on a Wednesday. But we will work with parents to give them enough warning that, remember, this is an early release day, and our teachers are collaborating at this point in time. So then as we move through, one of the other things that was brought up last month was the idea of starting school a little bit later, because we do know that that is something that parents have brought up. That is something that is one of the things that people do say, can you look at that? On this calendar, the way that everything really revolves around the winter holiday season. And that is the hard thing about calendars, is because our semester ends before the end of the winter break. If we push back first semester to end after the winter break, we can absolutely start later. But pushing the start of school and then adjusting, because right now it's already 3 days difference, first semester to second semester. If we added even just 2 more days, that would put 5 days. That's a whole unit. That is a whole week of instruction that's different for semester courses. And when they are held to the same standard, a teacher has to figure out how do I, or what do I cut? What don't I teach? So that is the hard thing about calendars, is sometimes they work very well on one thing and then the next time they don't. And so it just is how the years fall. As you look at it, the other thing that we are looking at is April 21st is a snow makeup day. We've embedded that within the year. It would be a day off for all students and staff unless we needed to make up time at the end of the year. The calendar has enough minutes that we truly meet and exceed the requirement by the state. If you look at the calendar, we have, at the high school, we have 11 extra days are built into the calendar. At the middle school, 16 extra days are built into the calendar, and at the elementary, approximately 17 extra days are built into the calendar. So the calendar has an ample number of minutes that are built in. The one other thing that we will be working on, and we still are working on, and in Spark, it is attached there, are the draft start and end times of the year. They are draft times. We do not have them fully defined yet, and that's not a part. The board approves the calendar, start and stop time. We still have to work with first student to determine what transportation is going to work, how it's going to work, and make sure that the flow with 11 days that is a given. So we will still work within those parameters, but we may fluctuate 5 minutes here and take off 5 minutes and just make sure that the calendar works for the start and stop time. It works for everyone across the board. So that is the 24-25 school calendar.
I would just add onto that with the discussion about the minutes in the day. A lot of what's driving that is actual bus routes. And so what First Student is doing right now is they are looking at kind of, we've met with them once, they're looking at some pickup and drop-off spots and how that all transitions out to the new elementary school and how that all flows with drop-off there, the high school and the middle school. So they're doing some practice runs right now, and we just need time to get through that in the next couple months before we make a definitive determination on the start of school and the end of the school day. but in terms of the calendar, thank you for the work. I know everybody would like a calendar that fits their one or two things that they want to have happen, but try to make it work for everybody, so.
Yes, thank you, Jackie and Jason, for working through this, and I know all the other committees and teachers that also reviewed, and administration. Any comments from the board?
Thank you.
All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes. The 2024-25 school calendar is approved as presented. Next up, Cornerstone at New Elementary. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the installation of a cornerstone in the new elementary building.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so the Beatrice Masons Group, as we talked about at the committee of the whole meeting, has requested your blessing as the Board of Education on the cornerstone design to be approved at tonight's meeting so we can move forward with the planning of that. Basically, the cornerstone is a symbol of the Masons of the state of Nebraska and the hands that do the work on all the buildings across the state. And so they request being able to put the cornerstone in. There's one at the high school. We've tentatively scheduled that ceremony for Saturday, July 27th at 1 p.m. in which case all Masons from the state of Nebraska are invited. We anticipate there'll be quite a showing from the Beatrice local group here. There's a ceremony at the school, and the Grand Lodge probably will have 10 to 12, and then the local membership of 10 to 12 will be there as well. So essentially we're just wanting to make sure that the Board of Education, they're asking for your blessing for approval of the cornerstone going in and the design that they put forth that was presented at the committee of the whole meeting.
Okay. Any questions? Comments? All right. Seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes. Next up, Administrator's Report.
So, very short this evening, just parent-teacher conferences going on this week. So a lot of parents in the buildings. We appreciate the teachers working with parents. We are. Dr. Nielsen is also working for suggestions on how we can change that up for the next year as well, and maybe make some improvements to that. So we're taking input and having meetings there. I want to say a heartfelt congratulations to all of our students and coaches through the winter activities season that we've encountered. I think our kids, it can be said that they're being directed by great people as coaches, and that shows how they compete on the court or on the stage or in the music room or wherever it is they're competing. This winter season is always typically the longest season of the year, and we're just about to the end of it, and I think our kids have done an outstanding job in everything they've done. So just a heartfelt thank you for their representation of Beatrice and Beatrice Public Schools. And then lastly, just a kudos to Mr. Suter and the administrative team at the high school, along with Dr. Nielsen. We had a cognitive visit last week, which doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but I want everybody to know what that means is we have people come out from the external, not from Beatrice. They're from across the state. They come into the school. We have to submit a ton of things to them ahead of time that they review on our processes and procedures. And then they spend a day interviewing our kids, our staff, our classified staff, and board members were part of those interviews as well. And I have to tell you folks that the words that cognitive team, those external team members from across the state had to share with us at the end of the visit were very, very inspiring and very, very congratulatory on the system that our high school is. And it wouldn't be that without the leadership that we have out there, and it wouldn't be that without the leadership that Dr. Nielsen provides for the curriculum and instruction that takes place. And one thing that I do want to share while Ron is here tonight, we'll have a full report for you next week. And what they did is they took words, they asked the students to describe their school in one word at the end of their interviews. And each student could pick one word. Now I'm going to tell you what those words are tonight, but I'm going to tell you they're pretty cool. But what I am going to tell you tonight is that one word that one of the external team members shared with us after their visit and their tour around the entire school and every nook and cranny they could go to was clean. And I want Rhonda to know how much, and her staff, I stopped by and told the high school staff that last week, our custodial staff. There are people in that building almost all hours of the day. From 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night, there are people entering and leaving that building all the time. And those folks noticed how clean it was when they came into our building from the outside. So, Rhonda, thank you for the work you do in leading our custodial team. Thank you to our custodians that work very hard to make sure that people, visitors from outside that come into our school, have a clean building to come in and out of. So, we will have a full report for you, but I just want you to know that cognitive visit, walking away that day, was a pretty darn good feeling about what 3 people who came into our building and talked to a bunch of kids and teachers and what they had to say leaving. So excited to share that report with you as we get it back. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Jason? All right, notification of next meeting. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be March 12th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Administration Building. The Committee of the Whole meeting will be February 22nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the Administration Building. An agenda for the meeting, which shall be kept continually current, is readily available for public inspection at the Superintendent's office during normal business hours. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 adjourn.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Eric. Your votes, please. We are adjourned.